Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Smita. It's a pleasure to see you this afternoon. You'll have to excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. It's not COVID, so if I do start coughing, don't worry, don't run away. Anyway, today we're talking about something that I'm very, very passionate about, and that is private squat practices, setting up a squat practice. I've almost been doing it for nearly 20 years now, and it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. So we're just going to talk about a few ingredients for successful startup practices or squat practices, and any questions, maybe we'll pause along the way. It's quite a casual little session. Okay, that's a little bit about me. I've got quite a few hats. Today I'm speaking on behalf of Samera, which is a sister business as well, but generally I'm the CEO of the Neem Tree Dental Practices. We've opened a few along the way. I'll be talking to you about them now, but just for this section, if you would like the slides for this presentation, please do text as is shown there. For everybody who downloads and would like a set of slides, we will donate £5 to the DEC Ukraine appeal. So just to let you know, this will come up at the end as well. All right? Right, so we'll start with the advantages of a squat practice. As you can see, the most important thing as far as I'm concerned is it's a creation. It's part of you. It's a blank canvas. It's you putting your mark on whatever it is you want to do, whether it's your mark on dentistry, whether it's your mark on a specific demographic, on a location, whether it's your brand, you want to get your brand out, whether it's your ethos, whatever it might be. It's all about creation. And it's all about creativity. Most important thing we'll talk more about in a second, but location is the single most important thing as far as I'm concerned. Also, of course, if you open on a new high street where there are no other dental practices, you're providing jobs to the area. You're helping the community, you're giving jobs, and you're bringing prosperity to the community. And of course, if you open a fab, super duper dental practice where there isn't one, other shops, other residences will also want to step up and come up to your level. So you're improving the local area. And also the cost of setting up a squat is less than purchasing an existing practice where you are purchasing the goodwill as well. Okay? One thing you're not doing with a squat practice, which I love, is you're not inheriting somebody else's issues, somebody else's problems, somebody else's debt, and somebody else's way of doing dentistry. Now, don't get me wrong, you might go and purchase an existing property where you've done your due diligence, you've done your due diligence on the financial side, but also the ethos and the running of the practice, and you think, actually, they're singing off the same hymn sheet that I am, and actually this is perfect for me, so I would be a perfect fit. So clearly, that would be a good buy. But generally, what you want is something very different to what I want, the way that we want to run dentistry. So it's just about things that you can avoid by opening up your own squat. Also, things like inefficiencies within staff. You know, the previous owners might have been sort of having some sort of malingering staff that they just couldn't get rid of because they've been there for 20 years, and you walk in and you think, oh my goodness, you know, they have 3 hours off at lunch and they're doing they're not very efficient, and they just, they want to finish right now. They've started half an hour ago, and it's just their attitude is not right, but you can't do anything about it because you've had to inherit them through 2P laws within employment law. And of course, pricing an hourly rate. The previous owner that you may have bought a practice off may have no idea about their hourly rate. They might have no idea that actually they should be pitching their prices based on a sessional or a time basis, whereas that might be something that you have become savvy in, and therefore you want to totally change the pricing in your hourly rate, but you can't really afford to do it because, again, how will that go down? It would be done slowly over time. And of course, opening times and ways of working. I remember working in a practice way back, nearly 20 years ago, where I was an associate. And I had this real issue because at lunchtime they would close for about an hour and a half. There would be a sign on the door, and everything would be switched off. The phones would keep ringing. Everybody would be just eating their sandwiches, missing all these calls that potential patients would be calling in to book an emergency appointment at lunchtime, and nobody would pick up the call. And I remember walking outside getting some lunch, coming back, and it was raining. It was really bad on a couple of occasions, I remember. Queue this long of patients standing outside, not allowed in. And I put this to the then owner, and I said, this is really not good customer service, patient care. We should be looking after the patients. We should be opening our doors. We should be picking up the phone when it rings twice, and no further rings. Fell on deaf ears, and it was just, I just thought, no, not for me. But of course, it would be remiss of me not to talk about any disadvantages of opening a squat practice, because of course there are some disadvantages of opening up a squat practice. The first one is a very important one. You open the doors and there's no revenue at all, okay? Which is something that you have to consider. Obviously, if you're buying a going concern, if you're buying an existing business, that's what you're buying. The day you open the door, you've already got patients coming in, you've got a revenue stream, you've got a good hourly rate, because you've done all your due diligence. So you've got nothing to worry about, really. But the day you open up a squat, it's a big day, because you don't know on day one whether you're going to have any income or not. I remember opening up Wandsworth way back, nearly 18 years ago now, and for a whole month, just to get the books going, we offered free checkups. We had the world's first giant toothbrush class outdoors outside the practice by the railway station, and we were all teaching everyone to brush their teeth, but we were coercing them to come in and get free checkups. But for the first month, we hardly had any revenue at all. But we were happy for that, because at least we had bums on chairs, bums on seats. We were working the chairs, we were working all the systems, and they were helping us. Obviously, if that's the case, you need to consider keeping your associate job somewhere else. I kept my job 3 days a week elsewhere because I had to pay for the bills, and obviously took on the services of other associates to work on the days that I wasn't there. So you have to consider all of these things with a squat. And also, whatever your desired level is of income that you're looking to earn, it just takes a little bit longer, a lot longer with a squat practice, because again, the trajectory of income is starting at zero and you're building, right the way up. Now, depends what sort of business you've taken over, also, because it might be that the business that you've taken over already had certain clientele that were perhaps similar to what you're looking for. They might not be dental patients, but they might be other clients. There might be a massage parlor there. There might have been a doctor's surgery there. And so you could potentially look at the pool of a patient base that you could tap into. But let's just say it was an estate agent. Then you really are starting from scratch. So you have to take that on. So the income level increase is going to be slower than if you take over a going concern. And then also CQC. I bet we all love Anybody love CQC here? Good, you're all normal. Hope there's no CQC stands around. So CQC registration can be quite onerous when you're opening up a new squat, a new practice, and it's completely and 100% on your shoulders when you're opening it up. And when you're looking to build in the practice, you've got to account for at least 12 to 15 weeks ahead of time making the CQC application, so that then you can start the ball rolling. And it's always been quite a tricky time, because you don't know whether you should put the CQC application in first or you should start a bit of the build, because of course they certainly were very time precise. So, they might come in on the 1st of March and you might not be technically ready till the 4th of March. Then you're moving them to the 5th of March, and then they come on the 7th of March, and then you've lost 3 days of revenue because you can't open the door without your CQC inspection, pre-opening inspection. So you've got to it's quite a tricky time with the CQC. Having said that, if you take over an existing practice, then most of the legwork is done by the previous owner. And again, that's where your clinical due diligence comes in, and you need to just make sure that the CQC and the inspections and the methods and the processes and procedures are all A-OK when you take over. So, anybody here thinking of opening a squat? Great. Anybody here scared of opening a squat? Anybody here petrified of opening a squat? Come and talk to me later. I love talking to petrified people. It's so cool. It is petrifying. It's very scary. It's an uncertainty like you've never experienced before. I think the only thing I can liken it to a little bit is having a baby, because you've got just no idea, especially your first baby. You just no idea what's coming. So it is a bit like that, but it is also very exciting. It is extremely exciting, and and also you've got to look at why you've got there. So the reason I got there was I just had quite a string of quite difficult associate posts in the run-up to opening my own, it was a difficult time, as I'm sure many of you, if you are associates, will relate. There would just seem to be limitations everywhere. At the time, I remember I was working in central London in Soho, and very nice practice, but it was a corporate environment, and I wanted to make a lot of changes for the betterment of the practice, whether it be opening hours, whether it be treatments, whether it be decor. Everything fell on deaf ears. Nobody listened to anything, any suggestions, not just me, but any of the team were making. And I just felt very much like a number, and I just didn't appreciate that. Also, it was all about churning and earning and drilling and filling and drilling. And if you want to take some time off to travel or to open up another business or to start a family, your income would slice right down to zero. And I think that was one of the big limitations. I thought, well, going forward, I might want to do other things. I don't want my income to just drop the minute I put the drill down. And also, I was building up a goodwill. Yes, but I was building up a goodwill for somebody else. And that would be fine if we were on the same hymn sheet, but we weren't. So I just got very, very frustrated. And as I say, time off was always a difficult one in terms of if you want a length of time to do anything else. In reality, to be honest, I just felt like I was on a cog in a wheel, like a hamster just going round and round and round the wheel and not stopping to take time to actually think, what is it? Is this the sort of dentistry I want to do? Are these the sorts of patients I want to treat? Am I happy? Think. So, to me at the time, a big shift was needed, really, a monumental shift. I mean, to open up your own business is monumental. I mean, and certainly for dentists, we're trained to be quite risk averse. We're not encouraged to take risks. We're not encouraged to, do things that are beyond our realm of normality. So to do something like this, where you're literally, on the precipice of something where you've got potentially no income coming in, that place hasn't ever had dentistry performed there. And also income is a big risk to take, and you have to want to take risks, or you have to be comfortable to want to take risks. So it's all about your uncertainty profile. And I think I thankfully, or unthankfully, have a very high risk profile, in the sense that I like taking risks, but they have to be calculated. So, but as I mentioned before, there's a lot of excitement, and yes, it was a bit unnerving to drop everything that I was comfortable with, a full-time job, 2 practices, to just step out on my own. But I felt so powerful, so powerful. It was a very liberating feeling. So, in the last sort of 18 years, we've planted 5 neem trees along the way. As you can read, started off in Wandsworth in 2004, which is still going strong. Canary Wharf, 2006. We've also planted them and sold some of them along. The current ones that we've got at the moment that are open are still Wandsworth and Esher, and we're on the lookout for more, so watch this space. And also, apart from the neem trees, we've also been helping clients. Actually, that number's changed. It's over about 100 now. People opening practices themselves and squats. We also, with Samera, do a lot of talks on, we do a lot of boot camps, which we've been doing for about 15, 16 years, probably longer. In fact, I just had a wonderful moment. A couple just walked past me and they just said, "You're speaking. I remember coming to you just before the pandemic, and you were really, you helped us with the boot camp, etc. And you'll be really pleased to know we just opened one in the pandemic, and it's wonderful. We're having a great time. It was difficult, really hard, as you said it would be, but we're just really pleased. And that was the first moment we took the step to opening our own clinic, and it was so lovely just to hear that ahead of this. So very privileged position to be able to do that. So the first practice, I'm just going to go through slides of what the sort of practices were before we started out, to give you a flavour of what a squat practice can be. The first practice was actually a disused NHS doctor's practice from the 60s, and that was in Wandsworth Town, near Clapham Junction. And obviously we had to get D1 planning in those days, which now we don't. And that was one of the big attractions there. It was on a main high street, very, very close to the train station. Wanted good high visibility. Wanted to treat a certain type of demographic, and this particular high street had that demographic. 30 to 40-year-old young professionals. It was Nappy Valley there, so wanted all these young mums with their buggies and their coffee mornings to talk to everybody else about our treatments and have this kind of spa feel to the practice, which nearly 20 years ago was a big deal. It isn't anymore. But yeah, it was a bit of a tip, I have to say, but with a bit of jiggery-pokery. And again, this is now nearly 20 years ago. It looked quite nice. And I remember the basement was just awful. They had all these wooden benches there, and I took one of the bench tops off, and I thought I'd find a corpse or a skeleton in there. It was that bad. But actually, we managed to do a little bit of good work there, so that was really good. Then in 2006, a couple of years later, so in Wandsworth, we had a lot of young professionals, as I say, and they used to work in the city, and they used to work in Canary Wharf, and they used to say, we'd love a practice like this that's open till 8, 9 o'clock at night, and you do all these different treatments, you've got different people coming in. We would love something like this. It's so nice here. And a few thousand loops and hoops later, in 2006, managed to open one in Churchill Place, which was the world headquarters of Barclays, and it was in the basement, actually, of the big Barclays Tower there. And I remember taking one or two of my team from Wandsworth here, and they just looked at it and they thought, oh my God, there's no light, you're in the basement, it's a hole. Why would you open a practice here? You're in a car park. It was a car park. So the first one was a doctor's practice. This was a car park. And again, I just said, look, just get some vision. Just have some vision. You can turn things around. This was one of the most expensive sites to renovate, and a large part of the money spent was under the floorboards and above the ceiling, and complying to Canary Wharf management and various things. So it was very expensive, but it built up the quickest. So the trajectory of £0 to earning well per chair built up very, very quickly. In fact, this chair, as you can see, it was July 2006, wasn't it? August 2006. As you know, just before hey, that lady there was the one who said, this is a dump. Why would you want to open a practice there? You remember that, don't you? As we open this practice, as you know, the Lehman Brothers crash, the 2008 recession hit, literally 2 years after opening this practice. And literally at that point, we had 2 chairs, we were about to turn it into 4 chairs by having 2 shifts. So Canary Wharf, as you know, carries Asian Pacific times, American times, Australian times. So we could have quite easily had a 7 a.m. to 2 o'clock shift, 2:30 to 10 o'clock shift, and it would have been fine. We were that busy. And then immediately the Lehman Brothers crash happened, and the recession hit, and we were the first to be hit, and it just crashed. So, it was a very volatile time, but a very successful practice. And there we can see also looking, it's now a hairdresser's, I understand. It's a Ted Baker's hairdressers now. So anyway, so that was that. But it did well. And then back in 2009, beginning of 2010, took over an architectural office in Esher, in Surrey, which is where we lived. This was the first time we took over a whole building. This was a purchase rather than a rental. And obviously, again, had to take it on subject to planning permission, because, of course, this had B1 planning. We were looking for D1 planning. And the first one, obviously, the doctor's surgery in Wandsworth was D1, so that was fine. In Canary Wharf, they managed it for us. They sorted it. But this was B1. B1 to D1 wasn't as difficult as A1 to D1, but we don't need to worry about any of these planning permissions at the moment. And that was quite an interesting one. That was quite a big practice. It's now got 3 chairs in it. We're looking to put another 2 chairs in this year, so we can go upstairs with this one. And it's been it's right opposite Waitrose. And it's great because, again, it's very visual. So you've got to really identify who it is that you're trying to treat, which demographic it is you're trying to treat, what type of patients you're trying to treat, and then go to where it is they hang out, whether it's shoppers of Waitrose, whether it's people who go to nursery. You might want to open opposite a nursery. You might be a paedodontist. You might be opening opposite a string of nursing homes, and you might be wanting to do a lot of implants, might be wanting to do a lot of perio. So it really depends on you. It depends on the sort of dentistry you want to do, the sort of team that you want to make, and the sort of dentistry that you want to offer, and therefore the location is key. Can't stress that enough. It's all about location. And if you get the right location, your marketing costs can easily be halved. Does everyone get that? Great. Then we took a little hand at sort of partnership and helping other people also open neem trees. And this was back in Fleet Street. This was a lighting shop, an electrical lighting shop. And nightmare because there were burn marks everywhere. Lots of little mini fires everywhere. So there's a lot of renovation needed here. And really good site, really busy high street, a lot of journalists, a lot of judges, a lot of solicitors. It was a really good demographic in terms of people that were being served there, and a really nice site. So again, you know, by this time you've developed your brand, you've developed your offering, what it is that you want to do, what sort of dentistry you want to have, what sort of decor you want to have, and also, you know, what your ethos is and what kind of brand you're trying to create. Okay, a lovely site. And then tried a hand at Notting Hill. So that was in Notting Hill. That was a laundrette. That was very interesting because there was a really big water tank in the basement. We had to get this massive water tank out of that front door, which was interesting. We had to break all the windows, get it out, and then put the windows back in. So that was crazy. And again, that wasn't D1. I'm trying to remember what that was, but it wasn't. Again, we had to take it subject to planning permission. So all of these planning permission issues, which now don't exist, but they did at the time, really made things limited on the high street. So, but again, a lovely practice. That was opposite M&S Foods, Simply Food. So again, visibility was key. So today I'm just, you know, talking a little bit more now about the current environment. And the demand, there's so much demand at the moment to open up squats, and I think largely driven by post-pandemic and also largely driven by the planning rules which have been relaxed. And as a result of which, at Samera, we're getting so many, literally within a week, multiple calls of people interested in opening up squats, people similar to yourselves, and you know, we ask a series of questions because it's not for the faint-hearted, but what's interesting is that, you know, after all of those questions, if the answers are favorable, then yeah, there's a big appetite, and I can understand why, but you've got to look at all of these factors. It's not just about, yeah, I'd love to open up a practice and it's as easy as that. It never is, right? I wish it was. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot. What are the reasons? One of the big reasons is, as I say, planning rules have been relaxed, but also uncertainty over the NHS. And I think over the last couple of years, certainly since the pandemic, there's been a lot of disgruntled people, whether you're in the NHS camp or whether you're in the private camp. Just show of hands here, how many NHS dentists do we have here who sort of purely NHS working as dentists? No? Okay, so rest are more or less private, right? Okay, so there's an uncertainty over the NHS, which, you know, let's be honest, is not moving in the right direction at the moment, and certainly with the strains on the NHS, well, the jury's out, but I just think things are going to get a little bit uglier. So how does that impact private dentistry? You know, again, and then the impact of the pandemic. Hopefully you guys were all fine during the pandemic. It was a very interesting time, wasn't it? Certainly 2 years ago right now was a very interesting time. And I think, you know, it's just been a very humbling couple of years, but I think for those of us who adapted and changed and got all the PPE and got all the SOPs in place and got everything in place, we ended up being a lot busier than perhaps we were pre-pandemic, but probably doing much more stressful dentistry with all the fallow time and the, you know, all the extra kit and caliber that we have to wear, and also the reduced hourly rate because of the extra time needed. But the point is, we were lucky enough to be able to work, so we can't complain. And I think the other reason is that the dentists just want to control their own outcome. I think there's so much uncertainty with the pandemic, so much was out of our control in the pandemic, that there is an appetite now to actually think, you know what, I want to be the leader of my own destiny. If I can't, you know, why can't I just do what I need to do and the way I want to do it? So all in all, it just boils down to independence, really. So I think, as you can see, there's a nice comparison there with, we've briefly spoken about that earlier. I think the biggest strength for me within setting up your own practice has to be starting with a clean slate. If you've picked your location well, if you've picked your demographic well, if you've done your due diligence, if you know what your strengths are in relation to the location you're opening, or the strengths of your team. You might have yourself and a couple of associates who can do stuff that you can't do. You might be an implantologist. They might be a great prosthodontist. You might have a periodontist there as well, again, depending on who you're serving. And you pop a fabulous GDP in there, job done. Once you've got that mix of your team, so when I say you, I mean your team, the opportunity to build value is very, very quick. And I think, one of the things we've been lucky enough to demonstrate is the whole set up from scratch to build up a very nice asset and sell cycle. So squat to sell cycle we've done. And that was the moment we sold, certainly in Canary Wharf, was a really interesting time because, you kind of felt like you'd created something in a car park and then you'd created an asset and it was finally, sold at a profit, which was a really good feeling because, it didn't come easily, but it was nice to know that it was a profit rather than a loss because so many businesses out there are, sadly, even at the moment, losing out. So I think that's something that you've got to want to do. You've got an appetite for business. You've got to have a savvy about you. You've got to be very entrepreneurial. Yes, you've got to be great at dentistry. You've got to love dentistry. But here's the thing. If you don't love dentistry, it's okay. and I'm not, I shouldn't say it in a bunch of dentists here, but that's not my biggest passion, to do clinical dentistry, right? So if there's anybody out here who's thinking, yeah, I do it and it's great, but it's not something I want to be doing, drilling and filling for the rest of my life or doing whatever area of dentistry I do, but actually I want to have my own business and do a little bit and potter and maybe open more, then maybe this is for you. But as I say, it is about risk. It is about knowing that you don't have a guaranteed list of patients. You might have days where you've got 2 patients. You might have days where you've got, you're open. I was talking to a colleague of mine earlier, even in one of the clinics at the moment, it's been a slowish week. However, yesterday, they were there till 9 p.m. and working really, really hard. The emergencies were going. It was crazy today. It's really, really busy. But then next week is quiet. I've looked at the books already. So it's like, yeah, but next week people need to be paid, right, when the books are quiet. So obviously you're always on this level of, oh my God, okay, why are they cancelled? Why are they, So there is this sense of responsibility that you have to take on board, whether it's for the books, whether it's for the business, whether it's for the staff, the team. Everything suddenly is on your shoulders, which for the right kind of person is a wonderful challenge. For the wrong kind of person, it's a complete nightmare. Okay, so you have to see what kind of person you are. Okay. You need a lot of patience as well. That's one thing you've got to be, and you've got to be very people oriented. Okay. If you don't really like people and you just like looking into a rubber dam or through a microscope, you're in the right job as an associate dentist. I mean, it's fantastic. It pays very well. Don't step into this arena because, in this, the other thing that it does, turning from an associate to a principal, it really highlights your warts. It really highlights your negative qualities. It really highlights your weaknesses. As an associate, you don't really have weaknesses, right? Nobody has weaknesses here if you're an associate. You're strong, you're brilliant at what you do. You're either an endodontist or an implantologist, you're fabulous. Nothing else counts. It doesn't really matter. As a principal dentist who's taking on a role of leadership, okay, your weaknesses really get highlighted. So that's not a problem, but I just want you to know that. Because if you embrace that and you take that on, you can always hire people who actually are very strong at what you're weak at, which is brilliant. How often do we get to do that? So I look at this as a positive. So in terms of actual brass tacks, in terms of figures, we're just looking at figures. I mean, this is obviously very ballpark. And of course, it depends on the location. It depends on the rent. It depends on the chairs that you buy, the quality of surgeries that you're setting up. But you're looking at around 200 to 300K to set up a practice. This is based on 2 chairs. Okay, and this is based on being very frugal. Okay, this is not based on getting carbon neutral and this and that and getting all the best of everything right at the beginning. This is being frugal, and that's actually quite. You'll probably know if you've been looking at buying existing practices. That's actually a lot lower than taking on the goodwill of somebody. As you know, you will be paying quite a hefty sum for that. So it's so this is about the cost. And then also, it's about just looking at it as an entrepreneur. You've just got to look. It's not necessarily dentistry, but it happens to be a business. You're now opening a business that happens to be dentistry. And that mindset for a dentist is really weird. I remember ages ago, I was sitting in Canary Wharf with Aaron, my husband from Samera, and I remember I was working 2 days or 3 days in Wandsworth, and I was working 2 days or 3 days in Canary Wharf to set it up, and then I would, bring in associates and sort of slowly start stepping back. And I said to him, and we just had a baby? No, yes. 2 years old, and I was like, 3 days here, 3 days. I can't open any more practices because I haven't got any more days in the week. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And he just sort of looked at me and he said, "Are you stupid? You're really looking at it from like a guinea pig on a wheel. You're just, you're looking at it from inside the business. Step out a minute and look at it from a long lens, and you'll see that you've got to think like a business person. Okay, you've got to look at it as." You shouldn't be working in your business, you should be working on your business. Because if you're working in your business, you've only got 7 days. Whereas if you're working on your business and you've got a fabulous team that you build, and don't get me wrong, that takes time, then you suddenly have 1 million days a week, because you can just sit there and you can plan and you can do everything. So it's all about having the motivation. And again, if you love clinical dentistry and you want to do 5 days, 6 days of clinical dentistry, it's still possible, because you can hire the services of people who will help you. But if you're somebody who's more of an entrepreneur and wants to do a bit of dentistry but also just open a business, this is probably more your cup of tea. Also, I think maybe at this stage, obviously I'd love to spend more time hearing about you. On boot camp days, we hear about each individual. What stage are you at? Where are you at? Have you found a site? Where's your business plan? Have you got a vision? All these sorts of things we talk about, and we sadly don't have time today, but all I'll say here is to just be clear. Get some clarity on what it is you want to do. If you don't know what it is you want to create, just wait. Don't rush into anything, because this is a bit of an irreversible decision. It's like getting a dog. You just don't get it for Christmas. This is your life. It's going to be your life, okay? And it's not only going to be your life, and here's the big thing, that lesson I learned. You're responsible for many other lives. And that's really scary, because suddenly you're paying a few salaries. You're responsible for people's livelihoods. Okay, so these decisions can't be just taken on a whim. So just think, be clear, be very tight financially. If you can't be tight financially and frugal, speak to Aaron. He will help you do that, because all the clients that you work with, they want to spend, and as we all do as dentists, especially coming to a place like this, it's amazing. But he won't let you spend. He will cut down anything that you don't really need. You will probably need, but not right now, okay? And as I've mentioned before, we don't need to talk about it again. Location is everything. Design, of course, is something that it would be very useful, since you're trying to create something that's you and the way that you want to provide the dentistry. You want to create something that's kind of a brand, whatever your brand might be. It might not be you, but it might be around the ethos of dentistry that you want to create. So again, design is very important. After location, the one single thing that I think you've got to really spend time on and really nurture and build is your team. I mean, there's just no doubt, team is everything. Right? Team is absolutely everything. They can make you and they can break you. I've had nightmares with team, lost sleep, nearly lost all my hair, just completely lost my marbles with team. And then on the other hand, I've had the biggest gifts in terms of things people have said and done, in terms of the way they interact with each other, and the family feeling of getting up and going to work every day. To me, they're family. And I think that doesn't happen overnight. First, when you open a squat, it might take a few months. You might not have, from experience, I could be wrong, but generally after 12 months, the team you started off with generally isn't the team that you're going to be ending up with. Generally. Okay, because when you open a squat, it's exciting, because obviously I'm hiring you because you're amazing at this, and you because you're brilliant at that, and you think, yeah, best intentions. But when you actually all merge together and you're working together for the first time, there's just too many unknowns. And on top of that, you're in a new location. And on top of that, patients that you've never seen before. Sometimes the people that you think would be perfect for that role, whether it's reception or a dentist or whoever, you actually, after a few months' time, you just think, it's just not working out. And they realize themselves. But regardless, team is everything. And marketing. We'll talk a bit more about digital marketing in a second. So I'm not going to read all of these out, but there's lots to consider. This is just, we've just put this up here just to indicate that there's a lot to think about when opening up your own practice. As I say, it's all on the slides and we can get them to you, but you've just got to think, there's so much. For example, are you buying or are you renting? Some might say, oh, it's much better to buy because it's your asset and then you can use that. Even if you sell the practice at some other point, you can still be the freeholder and somebody else can be, you've got an income for life. Others might say, well, actually no, because you're going to be sinking a million, 10 minutes, blimey. I could just go on all day. Please just tell me to stop. So you could be spending all of that money, but actually that's going to be a massive drain on you mentally to earn that. So actually just go for a high street location, let's say, where you rent it out and you spend and invest all of your money in the business rather than worrying about the rent or the mortgage payments. So there's always lots to balance. And then really, you've just got to be somebody who, possesses some sort of leadership potential. Somebody who's quite driven, somebody who's quite determined. I mean, I think it's difficult to know whether you're a leader or not at certain points in your life, but certainly you can look back at your own education. I mean, obviously you are determined and driven, otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? I mean, it's not that easy to actually even start the process of being where we are today. So I think everyone here is determined and driven. But it's somebody who wants their independence, somebody who's not scared of taking risks, somebody who doesn't want to spend their life doing cookie cutter dentistry at somebody else's command. I mean, obviously, for those people who are singing off the same hymn sheet, and if you agree with everything that your team wants to do, wonderful. But if you end up in every job where you just don't agree with what they want you to do, then it's maybe time to step out. That's what I would say. And you've got to have a little bit of business savviness. Doesn't go missed. Now a few facts. So with lenders, they will fund approximately 60% of the start-off costs. And then you've got all this list of things that what you need to do, all the legwork, the paperwork, the admin of what it is they'll need. A business plan is really, really important. At Samera, we can help you with that as well. But certainly, getting a business plan is really, really important. I stay a stage before that. It's an exercise I do. It's all about your vision. Creating something on paper and just writing down. It doesn't have to be a business plan. It doesn't have to have numbers. It can just be a single sheet of paper where you just write down. It's an exercise we do, which is really powerful in my opinion. We just don't have time for it here. Write down, maybe after today, maybe after now, go and have your lunch break and just write down everything you want to create, what kind of dentistry you want to do, what your sofa's going to look like in reception, what are you going to have, an RA machine, are you going to have an iTero, are you going to be doing scanning, are you going to be doing implant, what sort of dentistry are you going to do, who you want to serve, and where you can see yourself in 10 years, 15 years time, doing what. And maybe you'll come up with something. And as you can see, what they will fund, which is, more or less everything you need in a dental practice. But you have to detail everything. Like it says here, even just think of the microwave. You want funding for everything. Because ideally, you don't want to be spending from your pocket because you might not be earning anything to put in your pocket first. So you want as much money as possible. And then again, certain parts of this I think you'll be covering a little bit later, won't you? Things like your assets and liabilities, and then your associate accounts. We've got accountants here dotted around who you can talk to about things like this, to give you a bit more detail. And then, all the other things like the experience. I mean, not that I'd say no to anybody, but I wouldn't consider opening a squat just after you've done your VT. I would try and get a couple of years, if not more, personally 5 to 10 years experience under your belt, because it's not just the dentistry that you need to be good at. You also need to be a little bit savvy with life experiences, with patients coming in, with associates that you're going to hire. If you're 23 and you're trying to hire experienced associates who are 30, 40, 50 years old, they don't take too kindly too often by what they call teenagers. So actually a little bit more experience actually just gives you a little bit more gravitas and, nice grey hair like me. So it's all good. And then the key thing is to not build the practice in my opinion, this is just my opinion because I've made it very much not about me. The practice is purely associate-led, always has been. All of the practices have been associate-led. I've started them off, worked in them, and then stepped away. So, and that's brilliant because when it comes time to, do other things, that's great. It keeps you free, but I appreciate other people might want to be far more clinically involved. But also, when it comes to then selling the asset at whatever point you decide to sell, you're not tied in. Okay, because that's one of the bigger things, that if let's say you're doing five days of dentistry and all of the income is tied to you, then when whoever buys, they're going to say you can't leave. You've got to do your 5 days of dentistry because what am I buying otherwise? Whereas what I've tried to create is practices which, let's say tomorrow we need to sell for whatever reason, I don't need to be there because it's nothing to do with me, the actual dentistry. So. And that's good. But then also looking at the marketing, we've got digital, but we've also got non-digital marketing. Look, we really try and focus on the patient experience. For the minute they call, the first time they call, to the minute they leave and they get the how was it call, the whole patient journey, the whole patient experience. I know we talk a lot about that right now, but it's so important because the practice has to be thank you. The practice has to be all about what it is that your client, your patient is going to be experiencing, not about whether you like green or blue wallpaper, okay? And then it's all about making the patient, the most important person in the room, feel. Usually interviews, I always ask this question, who's the most important person in the practice? And patients might say, oh, the dentist or whoever might say, oh, the dentist, or the receptionist, or the hygienist, or the this. And the answer I'm really looking for is the patient, because without the patient, we have nothing. I don't have a job, you don't have a job, we don't have a practice. So everything you do, and I always talk to the team about this, what should I have done there? And what should he have said? And what should I have done? And what should he have written? You don't need to ask me. What's in the interest of the patient? Think about that. And then just hire the right team to give the patients an absolutely brilliant experience. Hire your front of house. Front of house have got to be welcoming, they've got to be cheerful, they've got to be engaging, they've got to bring the patients in and make sure they walk out with a huge treatment plans. That's what your reception team should be doing, okay? And then various other jobs with other experiences. If you want inspiration, don't look at other dental practices. Go to 5-star hotels. Good chance to get away, spa for the weekend. Just look at how they treat you. Just look and take note from that. Okay, that's what I used to do, traveling around, not necessarily 5-star hotels, but wherever we would go around the world, and I got amazing service. I just make a note, mental note, or on a piece of paper. I thought that is phenomenal. And then, of course, there's digital marketing as well. Nowadays, I think 5-10 years ago, it was far less about digital marketing. We used to sponsor balls. We used to go to schools. I used to join breakfast group meetings, networking meetings. We used to have stands similar to these in various places, in malls. So much we used to do. But literally 5-10 years, well, over the last 5-10 years, things have changed drastically. And it's now all about digital marketing. So spend your money on that. Think about that. Pay-per-click has been very, very useful for us. Search engine optimization has been very, very good for us as well. Again, we're very lucky because we've got a partner, a web developer who is helping us with all of this, who can also help other clients. So, you know, that's where you've got to be putting your money and your time now with marketing. Should we start up a squat? Is it a good time? I think it's an excellent time. But then I've thought it is an excellent time for the last 18 years. So I think right now is an excellent time, largely because of all those reasons we said right at the beginning, but certainly now with the planning rules that have come down. But it isn't easy. This is not an easy route. This is something that you have to really put all of your heart and soul into. It's not a linear decision. This is an all-embracing. It's a mental, emotional, heart decision. It's a people's decision. This is something that you really, really have to want to do. Because if you really, really don't want to do it, it's a bit like medicine. You don't just fall into it because it's a job, you know. No, you actually really, really want to do it. If you really want to do it, it's very rewarding on every level. How can we help? We've got a few people dotted around who can maybe come to the front here. So if people want to talk to you guys, please come. We're dental business advisors who do specialize in startups. We can help you with the account side, with the finance side. We've also got something called Samera Alliance, which is a buying group, which basically means that we've partnered up with certain service providers and equipment providers and products providers, which is a revolving door. So we're changing all the time, updating it to get the clients the best deal, and it's free to sign up. And we've also got finance as well, if anybody wants to raise finance. As I mentioned to you, the boot camp that we do, which we've been running for many years, it's an online version this time. It's on the 11th of June. It's great. We've got lots of handy tips, and we also tell you a lot about our mistakes, and we've made so many mistakes, constantly making mistakes. Love making mistakes because it keeps you human, it keeps you real, but also hopefully you don't make the same mistakes again. You just make different ones, which makes it more fun. And as I mentioned, the Samera Alliance, it's free to join for startup practices. And the aim of this is to bring lots of partners into it so we get better deals. Because if you've got 2 buyers, we'll get a deal. But if you've got 200 buyers, suddenly we can bend the arm of all these suppliers and get all of us. It's not just for you, it's for all of us. Get good deals. So free to join as well there. It's a horrible photo of me. Moving on. Yeah. Surround yourself, key thing here, surround yourself with people who will push you, who will inspire you, and who will tell you that you can do it, because you can do it. And I'm very passionate about it. If you want to come talk to me, because I will push you to do it. If you're expecting me to say, oh, don't bother, don't worry, oh, another day, another time, not going to happen. Surround yourself with people who will push you, okay, and rise above it. The key thing here is to take action. Okay, so if you go away from here and you really feel like you really want to do it, I would take some action. I wouldn't sort of sit here and think, oh, I'll do it next week. Oh, it's busy at the moment. Oh, the sun's out, or let me focus on this or focus on that. It won't happen. If you take action now, it will happen. As we mentioned, for a copy of the slides, just if you wouldn't mind just texting that number, and we will donate to the Ukraine appeal. Very important cause at the moment. And in case you want to, we're on the east side, number 73. Just over there, come and see us, and we would love to talk to you. I'd love to take questions, but I'm out of time, so please come and talk to me, or Aaron, or Dan. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Hope you have a great afternoon and great weekend.